All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name's Reese. I'm the founder and CEO of ActionFlow. And this is a webinar about a new feature of Slabsmith integration that we're offering with ActionFlow. And I think it's an exciting feature that could save you a lot of time and really improve your inventory management. So, and yeah, we will take questions. I mean, yeah, if you have a question, go and let me know. To some degree, I think I'd like to get through it and then come back and loop back. But if I say something that just totally confuses you, you can jump in and just add, maybe you can monitor the chat window and let me know if there's a question. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to kind of grab the bull by the horns right up front and just talk a little bit about pricing. So this is our, we're very transparent about our pricing. We have this pricing screen on our website. And so many of you, if you're current ActionFlow clients, this may not apply. You might be on an older plan, but these are our current plans. And even if some of these aren't exactly what you're getting currently, this is our current clients going forward paying these prices. But I just wanted to show that the Slabsmith integration is an add-on feature down here. And under our current standard plan, that doesn't include inventory, so Slabsmith integration isn't even available. And we're charging $200 a month. You all have to price products, kind of some of the thoughts that go into that. We didn't necessarily want to charge it for people. We didn't want to include it because we didn't want to charge for people that weren't using it. On the other hand, we don't, want to nickel and dime people to death, but we decided to charge $200 a month if you're as an add-on if you're using professional and enterprise. One other just think about the pricing on this. We want to add a tremendous amount of value for our clients, and I've even come up with this idea in my mind that you should get a value of maybe 5 times what you're paying. And in this case, on $200 per month, I think you could easily get far more than that. Even just adding the time that savings and what are you paying per hour for certain employees, you could probably get far more than that in that regard. Or even just by using this, if you're managing your slabs better, it's pretty easy. Like if you might pay $1,000 for a slab of something, and if you could save even 1 slab a month, you would have saved 5 times what you paid for this. And even like how might you save a slab? I mean, one way is, if like on a Monday and a Friday, you're cutting a job with the same color, and the first job takes 2.5 slabs, so you use 3 slabs, and then the second job takes 2.5 slabs, and you use 3 slabs there. Well, you use 6 slabs for those 2 jobs. Maybe if you had the organization and insight to realize you were cutting these 2 jobs of the same color, you might cut them on the same day and use 5 slabs for those 2 jobs rather than 6. Or, if you're tracking things well and the first job had a remnant and it's from the same bundle, and so you can use that on the second job. So there's lots of ways you can, by managing your remnants and organizing these, you can imagine ways that you can make much better use of your material and save some significant money. So we think this is going to be a tremendous value in saving you time and allowing you to organize your inventory better. So I'm going to initially just show you how this works once it's all installed and up and running. And then I'm going to kind of loop back and show you how you would set it up and do that. So in this case, I'm going to pull up ActionFlow. This is our ABC Countertops account. And again, this is like, you know, once this feature is up and running, what you might do is you come into ActionFlow, and what many of you are normally doing already, you know, let's order some slabs. I'm going to add a slab, and let's just say I'm going to order some antique brown. And let's say the slab is 20 by 60. Maybe it costs, let's just say $15. So here's a slab. The status is created. I'm going to order 2 slabs here. So in your typical world, you'd probably come here, you'd create a purchase order and email this to the client, or maybe you log on their website. But you order these slabs, you know, you wait a day or a week or so, and then they come back and you receive them. At that point, I mean, normally you're going to do this through the actions, but I'm kind of doing this a little more quickly. So I'm going to just manually mark these as available. And at this point, you'd probably print out your labels, your inventory labels, and slap them on the slabs. And so this is slab 3102 and 3103. And they're now available in ActionFlow. One other thing I want to point out at this point, over here we have this Slabsmith slab ID, which is blank. Okay, so we ordered 2 slabs. Now, in this view, this is my computer, obviously, but I have the Slabsmith database installed on this computer. You know, and so there may be several people in your company that are using Slabsmith, but there's only going to be one computer that has the database, the Slabsmith database. And that computer will have that SQL database, and it will have this database administration program installed on it. So on that computer that has the Slabsmith database, you are going to install this program, and this is like the key program that does this, the Slabsmith AF program. And it's pretty simple. It just has 2 tabs. Today, like when you first install this, you're going to want to do these functions by clicking these buttons to troubleshoot and get it up and running and all. And today, to show you, just so I can manually show you, I'm going to click the buttons. But when you actually get it running and running well, you're probably going to click this button right here to auto sync every 5 minutes. And, you know, after you do that, you don't want to exit it because that'll close the program. You would just minimize it. So this program will just continue to run on the computer where Slabsmith is installed, the Slabsmith database. So this program sits in the middle between Slabsmith and ActionFlow. And as you'll see, it transfers data back and forth. So I'm going to retrieve new slabs, and notice here this available status. So it's going to retrieve any new slabs that have been created in ActionFlow. So it did it. Now, this will be a little confusing, but I kind of hope you understand what's going on here. Because I don't actually have the Slabsmith user interface installed on this computer. I mean, I really don't even know how to use Slabsmith. I've seen it. But what I'm going to do is, this is a look behind the scenes. And I can do it a little quicker this way than actually doing it the way you would do it. But I'm going to if you look back here, if you remember, well, these were slabs 3102 and 3103. So that number is going to be shared between ActionFlow and Slabsmith. So this is, I'm just going to look at in Slabsmith for these two slabs. In Slabsmith, they're called the inventory ID. So there's 3101, 3102. Notice it's granite 3cm, antique brown. And then behind the scenes in Slabsmith, they actually track this size by millimeters. And, you know, they have the ability to do L's. So there's A, B, C, and D. But those are dimensions of the slab. And so that the good news is these slabs got automatically transferred into the Slabsmith database. And if you'll notice, there's a slab ID, which is how they identify those in Slabsmith. If I come back into ActionFlow and I refresh, notice that Slabsmith slab ID is now existing in ActionFlow. So what happened was the slabs went over to Slabsmith, and then Slabsmith created the record. They generated these slab IDs, and they sent that information. It sent the information back to Slabsmith and filled it in right here. And if you look just at, like in this case, those first 41E, you can see, you know, the 41E right here. So this is uppercase, but it is the same ID. So these two slabs are now connected. They exist in Slabsmith and ActionFlow, and they're connected. And yeah, so that part worked. So that's good news. And that's, you know, that's a big part of it right there. And again, the flow, once you get, I mean, I'll talk a little bit like when you first get this set, you might have slabs in both places and how to get it set up, and you might bring them from Slabsmith, but generally the flow, once it's up and running, is you'll enter stuff in ActionFlow, you'll do your POs, you'll print out your slab IDs, and then you'll send those off to Slabsmith. And that's the general flow of things. Now, one other thing, you know, sometimes in ActionFlow, like at the quote level, you may want to see the image. We have the ability to do a fab layout and like show a customer how their kitchen will look with the image. Now, you know, we don't present that as something that can then go to your machines. It's not precise enough, so it's not intended to be something that's going to create G code and drive your machines, but it's a nice quoting capability. And so we do have the ability to bring those images back into ActionFlow. Now, I'm going to point out, like at this point, neither of these slabs have any images. If you look down here in the files, you'll see there's nothing listed there. So there's no image files associated with these slabs in ActionFlow. Now, again, just to do things more quickly, I'm going to cheat. You know, in real life, you go into Slabsmith, you know, you got your green screen, you take these real high resolution photos, and so you take photos of these slabs. And what happens behind the scenes, you may or may not know this, is Slabsmith creates a folder. So, and here, let me just show you this. Notice the data path is C:SS data. So you tell Slabsmith where you want them to put these photos. And then also, as part of our settings over here, you tell Slabsmith AF where those images are. And so it's, I think that probably you can change it, but I imagine everybody probably uses just this SS data folder. So there is this on your C drive, there's SS data, and then there's a folder for every single slab. There's an image file, and then notice the, here, let me, so these are there's an image file and a partial res image file. So this is what it looks like behind the scenes when Slabsmith takes a photo. What I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to take that folder and copy it, make 2 copies. And and I'm going to grab this slab ID. So this is, again, looking at these are the records for these two that we just created. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to name that folder after the first slab. I'm going to copy that and name this other folder after the second slab. So, these obviously aren't the right images for that color, but Slabsmith now has images for each of these two slabs that we just created. And I'm going to go into, it's 3102, I'm going to use this 3102, 3103, all slabs, and I'm going to send only the images. So I'm going to send those. Now, if you were doing it, like if you were sending all your slab from Slabsmith over to ActionFlow, these you just say include images, and the images would be included. But I'm just going to do since the data is already in there in ActionFlow, I just need to send the images only. So I'm going to do that. And now if I go back to ActionFlow, if I open this, that image for 3103, notice they're down right here, Slabsmith image, I can double click on that. So now ActionFlow has, and I can show you the setting, but we grab the low res image of that because it transfers quicker and takes up less space, and you probably don't need the super high resolution for what you're doing in ActionFlow. So now we have two slabs in ActionFlow Slabsmith. They're tied together, and the image is existing in ActionFlow. So one more thing, well, in terms of use, then let's say you want to use those slabs. Obviously, that's a common thing you do. And so you would, again, you have people who know how to use Slabsmith. You go out and you use those slabs, and you may create remnants. I'm going to cheat again and do it more quickly, and also do it behind the scenes. And I'm going to use that one slab. I'm going to consume I'm going to set the status to consume. So I'm going to consume one of those slabs, and then I'm going to create a new slab record, which is where the dimensions are half the original slab. So I'm going to create a remnant. So I'm just going to run this. And if I go back here and look at those slabs again, so now the status on that original one was consumed. And then the other thing I can do, the remnant is going to have that ID. So now there's a remnant in Slabsmith. And again, I want to emphasize this. I don't want to confuse anybody, but you aren't doing this in the database. You're doing this by using Slabsmith. You mark it as consumed, and then, Slabsmith knows what the dimensions are. But I'm just doing some shortcuts. And so we now have this additional slab record. Notice it says the parent slab UID of this one points back to this one. And this is a remnant, and this original one was consumed. So this is what happens behind the scenes when you consume a slab in Slabsmith and create a remnant. Now, if I go send data to ActionFlow, and in normal situations, this would happen every 5 minutes once you're up and running, but I'm, get rid of these. I'm going to do it manually by clicking that button. Yikes. I forgot to do new slabs only. I think that probably worked. Yeah. So what we see here is that original slab that I marked as consumed is now marked as used in ActionFlow. So we use two different terms. In ActionFlow, we call it used, and Slabsmith is consumed, but it's the same thing. And then here's the new record that was created, 3102-01. A few things to point out. Remember, I said the length and the depth. I manually said it's half of that. And here I think this all makes sense, but I just want to draw a little picture here real quickly. So if the original slab was like this, it was 60 by 120, and then the remnant was half of that. So it was 30 by 60. And so that area is 1/4 of the original slab. So the remnant was created as 1/4. So we see here that the area, the square footage, 1/4. Now the other cool thing that's going on here, it actually calculates the value of that remnant. So the original slab was 750. It automatically takes the quarter and calculates the value of the remnant as 187.5. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a tangent here on something that isn't specifically related to Slabsmith, but it impacts it, and it's related to our inventory in general. So this was antique brown. I'm going to go over to administration to SKU items. I'm going to go down here to granite 3cm. I'm going to go to antique brown. And there's this certain field that you have the ability to set called remnant percentage. And it can go from 0 to 100%. Typically, it would either be 0 or 100%. And in this case, antique brown was 100%. So what that means is, just like I showed you, since the slab was 1/4 of the original slab, it took that 1/4 and it took 100% of that prorated value, 100% of the 187, and it used that as the value of the ongoing remnant. And this comes into play when you start doing, like, ActionFlow has some really nice cost accounting and even calculating T-dollars. If in this scenario, as we're looking at it now, if you wanted to say what was the cost of material for this first slab, what ActionFlow does, it says, well, it was a $750 slab, but you have 187 of remnants that was created. So we'll subtract that, and the cost of this is going to be like the 500, whatever that would be, that's left over when you take 750 times 187. And so it actually knows to subtract the ongoing value of the remnant away from the cost of the original slab when calculating the cost of this job that this was used on. Now, one other possibility that people like to do sometimes is they say, you know, those remnants are just a pain. I'm probably never going to use it, especially on a granite remnant. And, you know, I want to set this to 0. And, you know, you could theoretically set it to 50%, but normally people use either 1 or 0. And in that case, at the point when that remnant was created, it would say, you know, I don't want to use 100% of that prorated value. I want to use 0%. And so the value of this slab would have been, you know, 0. Like, so you're not carrying any inventory value for your remnants. And then, you know, the full cost, when you do your cost reports, the full cost is going to be applied to this, and you're not holding any value in inventory for the remnant. So you can decide what you want to do. I think people do it both ways, but whichever way you want to do it, ActionFlow will calculate it automatically. So that's basically how it gets used, you know. You know, it's not terribly complicated. It probably just seems sort of obvious. Hey, create it here, send it to Slabsmith. When they get consumed, send it back to ActionFlow. But, you know, it takes a whole lot of work and effort to get things to work simply. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes to make this work. Now, again, we can take questions on this later on. I do want to try to get through it and then take the questions. I want to talk about how you would set this up initially. So when you're initially getting this ready to go, you know, you got to download the Slabsmith program. So if you go to Resources, Install, you would install the Slabsmith integration app. You know, you click on this, and we did have a few problems recently just getting it to install, but I think we got those resolved. So it literally takes just 30 seconds or so, and you install it. And then, you know, you could create an icon, or in your start menu, you're going to have a Slabsmith AF program that's running, again, on the one computer in your office that's running the Slabsmith database. This is where you want this to go. The second thing, then, you're going to want to come to the Settings tab and enter these settings. Like the lower half is going to be defaults. You can probably keep the defaults on those. But the upper half, again, this program sits in the middle, so it needs access to Slabsmith and it needs access to ActionFlow. So the fields up here, you can see by opening the administration program, you know, the server instance, so you put that in there. The username is down here. I created a username on my computer called AF. Probably in many situations, you can just use the default SA username and then the password that you get into your Slabsmith database with. And I'm not going to say it, but Slabsmith publishes that. And in my experience, most people just stick with that default one. So you can change it to something or use it, but you enter that there, and then you can test it. And when you test it, all that just did is it looked at the very first slab in the list and retrieved the slab ID. So since we were able to retrieve that slab ID, we know that's working. Similarly, on ActionFlow, you're going to have an enterprise ID. And also, you know, we're going to be helping you go through this. So it's not like you have to remember this or in this. I mean, we'll definitely help you through all of this. But there's an enterprise ID and this, and you basically can use, you know, the login name and password of the inventory manager, shop manager, or whoever. But you need a valid ActionFlow password, and then you can test that. And in a similar way, it just goes out and it says, you know, give me the first slab number in ActionFlow. And if it finds it, then the test succeeds. So you leave those in there. You know, what slabs do you want to send to ActionFlow? What statuses do you want to retrieve? You know, after you've got it running a week or two and you've been doing this manually by clicking these buttons, then you'll click this auto sync. And then it'll just start running every 5 minutes to retrieve the data and send the data. So those are the settings. Now, the one thing that I want to talk about is this Slabsmith map. And that's takes a little work up front, to be honest, because in Slabsmith, and you can see it over here pretty clearly, I guess, when I look at these records. Slabsmith has like 5 different ways to identify a color, like, and I'm not even, there's like manufacturers, I'll show it more in a minute, but material, product, what's the thickness, what's the name, and whereas in ActionFlow, you know, we don't have that many ways to describe it. And I think there's some benefits either way. But basically, all we have is a SKU class and SKU items. So this is granite 3cm, then is this class, and the color is almond gold 3cm. And we do have a thickness field here that you can define, but that's more for documentation purposes. Typically, we recommend putting the thickness right there in the name. But the problem that leads to is, like, how do you match up the colors between Slabsmith and ActionFlow if they have two different ways to identify those? And the answer is there's a Slabsmith map. So here, and this table is, you have to, well, there are tools to create it, but this remains in place in ActionFlow to translate between Slabsmith and ActionFlow. So here you see the 6 fields that might go into naming a color in Slabsmith: material, manufacturer, product, name, finish, thickness. In this instance, the material is Caesarstone 2cm, but I've seen sometimes you put that Caesarstone name in the product. And then, like I mentioned already, we tend to add the thickness onto the name, but in Slabsmith, they might have a shining armor with a 2cm thickness and this shining armor with a 3cm thickness. So this table has to exist to say when it looks like this in Slabsmith, we want to assign that to this in ActionFlow. And I'm going to, one more time, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to actually delete all of those records. So now I'm actually in the ActionFlow database doing this, rather than, even though it's the same view, I'm deleting it from ActionFlow. And if I go into the Slabsmith map and refresh, yeah, hold on one second. I'm going to reopen ActionFlow because I think it doesn't reflect right away. Okay, so when you first start out, you will not have anything in this Slabsmith map record. And typically, it depends on what, if you've been using ActionFlow, when you turn this on, you're going to have records in ActionFlow and in Slabsmith, and they probably aren't going to, they may be roughly the same, but we have to kind of talk through that, how best to do it. It depends on which is most reliable. In some situations, we come in and they have not been using ActionFlow for inventory, and they have good data in Slabsmith. So we want to bring that information from Slabsmith into ActionFlow. Regardless of that, we need to get this map working. And so there's this button, Send Slabsmith Map. If I click that, it's not going to send every slab, but it's going to send every color. So it's going to look at all the slabs and look at all the colors that have been entered into Slabsmith and send that over to ActionFlow. And so when you do that, all these different combinations are going to come over here, and we're going to have to say, if it's this set of fields in Slabsmith, what does that map to in ActionFlow? Now, in the case on my computer in this demo account, we didn't have Slabsmith running, so I just took everything from ActionFlow and transferred it over to Slabsmith. So our Slabsmith data is very clean. It already matches ActionFlow, but in your case, it will probably not. But we have this auto map capability and all these various rules. So we can say if the material plus the thickness plus the finish, take that and try to match it into one of our SKU classes that we have in ActionFlow. And I'm gonna go back to this right now. The material is the SKU class and the name is a SKU rule. I'm the auto map. And because it all came from ActionFlow to begin with, it mapped exactly, so it worked really nicely. In your case, you know, the auto map and these rules will probably get a lot of them mapped. We can then manually say, you know, like these records, we call that Cambria 3cm or Caesarstone 3cm. So there's like 3 or 4 tools we can use to create this map that we'll have to step through. And, you know, it can be annoying, like, you know, you might have misspelled something one place or the other. So you may just, in some situations, you just have to map and say, yeah, this shining armor, we misspell it in Slabsmith, but it maps to this shining armor in ActionFlow. So on some of the colors, you might have to just manually come in and create them. Or the other thing, that's step 3. It's possible that there are things existing in Slabsmith and you haven't even created those SKU classes and SKUs yet. So if there's missing ones, you can actually automatically create new classes in ActionFlow. So again, we'll help you work through all that and show you and step through that. But getting this map created is going to be really important and it's going to remain in place on an ongoing basis. Yeah, depending on your situation, which set of data is most reliable. We may transfer slabs from Slabsmith into ActionFlow or ActionFlow over to Slabsmith at the beginning. So that's basically it. I mean, so I talked about how it's used, then went back and kind of talked about some issues on setup, but that's about it. And I can take any questions that you might have at this point.
I'll be monitoring the chat. I'm also going to put in a little thing if you're interested in either Slabsmith or ActionFlow. There's instructions in the chat now to follow there. But yeah, like Reese said, any questions?
You know, when the questions are slow, that either means you did a brilliant presentation and answered all their questions, or you like totally lost them and they're so confused that they have no idea how to ask a question. How does this compare to the FabChoice integration? So yeah, FabChoice is a great program or a great company, and Roderick Bly is the primary principal there, and we have multiple clients who are using FabChoice. They help a fabricator get set up with ActionFlow and administer it on an ongoing basis. And they've worked with Moreware and Stone Profits in the past, so they have a tool that will integrate with Slabsmith. And that, it does similar functionality, just trades data back and forth between Slabsmith and ActionFlow. So if you're working with Fabricator's Choice, that's definitely an option available to you. And it's basically, 2 different tools to do a similar thing. Yeah, I'm real sure that Josiah. So yes. Yep. And will that be in our webinars list?
It'll be in our webinars. It'll also be on YouTube. Yeah, it should be quite public.
We'll also probably email it to everyone who registered for this event, just so you'll have a copy.
I tried using the chat, but it won't work. I can't even type in there. I don't know why. But I asked the question on the Q&A, asking if we have to work within the SQL or can we work within SlabMaker?
Well, is SlabMaker something different than Slabsmith?
Well, SlabMaker is how you like take pictures of your slabs. You have SlabMaker, and then you have SlabMaker Lite, which like an inventory person would use SlabMaker Lite to create all the inventory items prior to, just like you're doing within ActionFlow.
Well, okay, but I'm a little confused on the term SlabMaker. Is that a feature within Slabsmith, or is that a totally different product?
It's a feature within Slabsmith.
Well, I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong. I haven't had this question before, but I'm pretty sure even if you're not aware that there is a SQL program that Slabsmith is using. So I think the answer is it should work with Slabsmith. Do you have reason to believe though that they're not using the SQL program behind the scenes?
No, it wasn't that. It was just a question of, do you have to work within the backside of the SQL?
No. And I felt kind of bad because I think that might have confused things unnecessarily. Well, it was sort of necessary because I don't know really how to use Slabsmith, and I knew it in the back end. So no, you would use SlabMaker, you would use Slabsmith, you would use everything you're used to doing, and you would not use the stuff I was doing. So assume you would do everything in Slabsmith like you've normally been doing.
Got it.
A few more questions in the chat, Reese. I'll read. You want me to read it out?
Let me
go ahead and read them out just so we have it for the recording, Josiah.
If multiple employees have access to Slabsmith, will the 5-minute auto sync upload to both employees' Slabsmith records? Also, do both employees need to have ActionFlow running in the background at all times?
Okay, so yeah, you might have 5 or 10, well, probably not 10, or maybe not even 5, but you would have multiple people that are using Slabsmith is very likely. Now, what they would be doing though, they have the full, like, SlabMaker, I think is the terminology, but they would have this program that they're used to using where you see the slabs, you do the layout. So that's Slabsmith. So even if that were on 3 or 4 different computers, 3 or 4 different employees were using Slabsmith, there's still just going to be one computer where the database is. I mean, there's not 3 or 4 different databases of Slabsmith. There's one, and there can be multiple computers tapping into that one database. So you wouldn't install this program on each computer of people that were using it. You would go in and you'd install it on that one computer where the database is. So, and in doing that and updating that one single Slabsmith database, that would show for all employees. So there's a centralized location, you update it there, and all employees are going to see that. So Colin, if I'm understanding correctly, when I have a slab that's been integrated into the system via the integration, when my guys in the shop partially consume the slab and generate a usable remnant piece via Slabsmith, this smaller piece of usable material will show up in my ActionFlow inventory automatically. Yes, that's exactly what would happen.
Very succinct way to say exactly what the program does.
Yeah.
Then there was a question in the Q&A as well. Jose asked, can inventory reports be printed?
Well, definitely ActionFlow inventory reports can be printed, yes. And there's several different ones. There's a snapshot, there's like inventory alerts, yeah, but those can be printed from ActionFlow on a piece of paper if you want to. Let's see. Well, let me get
one there.
Yeah, from Marlaro. If we were just getting started with Slabsmith, how would you suggest getting the slab started to integrate with ActionFlow? If the Slabsmith is what's new and you've been using ActionFlow, then this integration will do a great job of populating Slabsmith with the initial slab. So that should work fine. Yeah, the general process is you figure out which data is best, and then you go from that good data to the other program. Let's see, I
think
saw
that's
one,
all of it.
but Tyler, I think, was asking it. Oh
yeah, sorry, I just saw. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. Christine at the end of hers asked if ActionFlow needed running in the background. I just wanted to clarify that point. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Reese.
Oh, no, it does not need to be running in the background. Yeah, no, the answer is just no. You would not need to have ActionFlow up and running on that one computer. You'd have to have that Slabsmith AF program up and running, but not ActionFlow. Although typically, you probably, like the guy, that computer, is that the inventory manager or whoever, he may want to open ActionFlow periodically and check things out and compare the two, but you don't have to have that running in the background.
This is Roderick from Fab Choice. Just have a quick question.
Okay.
We're getting a fair amount of requests about the Horus system, the Horus scanner. And I know we have looked at integrating that with a number of clients already, but I know that ActionFlow is exploring that as well. So can you give an update so that those that are thinking of moving over to the Horus system or switching from Slabsmith over, there's a number of those that are ready to do that as well. Can you give any update on integration with Horus?
Yeah, we do have an update. I'm going to share my screen real quick because this is kind of cool. So any of you who have been, I don't know if you've been at like Surfaces or Ties, you might have seen this image like 12 feet tall, this brilliant colors, and this is Horus. And yeah, they're basically a Slabsmith competitor. And I think they're gaining some traction, and instead of taking a photograph of a slab, a high resolution photograph, they're more like a scanner that you use in your office. They actually scan the slabs and get the image that way. But once they've done that, then they have, I think, similar functionality to what you can do in Slabsmith to do your layouts and stuff. And yeah, we have, like Roderick mentioned, we've been getting several clients that are moving to this, and we are taking steps to integrate with them. Now, we don't have it as sophisticated as it is in Slabsmith yet, but I think we're, given the number of questions we're getting, we're probably going to move there pretty quickly. I kind of imagine like Venn diagrams, the two circles. And if you took Slabsmith and Horus and you draw those two circles, the functionality would be overlapped pretty significantly. And I don't know if I'm saying it very well, but what I'm trying to say is, I think by having Slabsmith integration created, there's a significant overlap, and we're probably 2/3 of the way to having Horus integrated. The database that they're using is going to be different than Slabsmith, but the processes are going to be the same. So we know the general processes, and we have the database working on our side. So it'd just be a matter of understanding what Horus is using to store their data and how we tap into that. So it's not trivial, but this isn't a promise, but I would say probably within 6 months, we could have a similar integration tool with Horus, and that just, you get it running, take a few months to get it running, then you find 1 or 2 people that are willing to test it and debug it and all that, and then eventually you do what we're doing now, where we roll it out more generally. So best guess is maybe in 6 months we might have something working for Horus.
One more question from the chat, Reese. When you use a slab what would you mark the remnant in Slabsmith first, then it would communicate that info to ActionFlow?
Exactly. You would, and again, it was, my demonstration was a little confusing because I wasn't doing it the normal way. But however you normally consume a slab in Slabsmith, and I think this is obvious, but I'll just say it. What's really nice in Slabsmith is you've taken this high resolution photo, so Slabsmith knows what the slab looks like. Then it does the layout, and so it knows what the remnant is going to be left over, and it knows it already has the picture of that remnant because it's just a piece of the other one. So all of that works really well. And so whatever you do in Slabsmith now to consume a slab and create a remnant, you do that exact same thing. And then the next synchronization, that marking the original slab as consumed and transferring that new remnant should happen automatically.
Great. Another question. Have you explored making a Windows service? Our Slabsmith database is on a dedicated server without any users logged in.
Well, no, I mean, I think this should work fine. I mean, obviously, you say without any users logged in. Well, I mean, somebody had to install it on that server and set up the database and get those functions. So I think we would, remote in or however that Slabsmith got installed on that server, we would go in and we'd install this program on that same server, and it should run the same way. So I don't think we would need to make it a Windows service. I think the current situation would work fine if Slabsmith is installed on a dedicated server. We just install this program on that same dedicated server.
Any final questions? And yeah, again, we'll if you're a current ActionFlow client, don't hesitate to reach out to your account manager. We can set up the next steps and go over any other questions that you may have. And yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you all very much. And obviously we're almost to the Christmas season. So or almost to Christmas. We're in the Christmas season. So have a great holiday and Christmas and New Year. So thank you all. Thank you, Dustin, and take care.